He entered the small roadside diner the way storms enter a quiet valley, fast, unexpected, and carrying a weight no one could name. The billionaire, Adrian Hale, known for building empires on steel, numbers, and a heart wrapped in layers of ice, walked in with cold purpose that morning. He hadn't slept for nights. His father, once a towering man, had slipped deeper into the cruel grip of memory loss and physical weakness. What hurt Adrian most wasn't the sickness itself, but the way he had lost time, time he could never bring back, time stolen by ambition. He had come to pick his father up from the care worker who helped him travel, but what he saw through the fogged diner window made his breath stop. His father, frail and slow, sat at a corner table, and a waitress knelt beside him, holding a spoon, gently feeding him like he was the most precious person in the world. Her face showed no disgust, no pity, only warmth, patience, and a tenderness Adrian had forgotten even existed. And in that small heartbeat, something inside the billionaire cracked open, backhand index pointing right. If you believe kindness, humanity, and second chances can change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Adrian stood frozen, watching as the waitress continued her soft, careful movements. Her name tag said Lena, and although her uniform was faded, her smile shone like it had survived 1,000 storms. The way she looked at his father, how she wiped his chin so gently, how she whispered something that made the old man smile, these were things no amount of wealth could buy. Adrian swallowed hard, ashamed of how little time he had given the men who once lifted him onto his shoulders. He had been so busy conquering the world that he hadn't noticed his father was slowly losing his own. But Lena noticed. A total stranger noticed. And she cared. When his father began coughing, Lena didn't panic. She placed a comforting hand on his back, letting him take his time. Her eyes carried exhaustion, yet they held a depth of compassion that shook Adrian to his core. He realized she wasn't feeding him out of duty, she was feeding him out of love for humanity itself. Something about her movements felt practiced, almost personal, like she had done this for someone else before. Adrian felt a cold chill of curiosity mixed with guilt. How many times had he rushed past the suffering of others? How many moments had he missed simply because they didn't fit into his schedule? The diner was quiet that morning, and as Adrian finally approached, Lena looked up at him with tired eyes. Not fearful. Not impressed by who he was. Just present. Just human. His father looked up too, confused, then relieved. Adrian helped him into his coat, but the image of Lena feeding him stayed carved into his mind like a photograph burned at the edges. Something compelled him to stay for a moment longer. He ordered coffee he didn't need just so he could watch her work. She moved with an odd mixture of strength and vulnerability, her steps graceful but deliberate. And when she thought no one was watching, she paused, pressing a hand to her lower back with a wince of pain. It was then he overheard the cook calling her name, telling her shift had doubled again because they were understaffed. She just nodded, forcing a grateful smile. Adrian saw the truth. Lena was struggling. Life had carved its battles into her posture. But even in her exhaustion, she found the strength to care for a stranger. Something about that made him feel small. He asked the owner quietly about her, learning that she worked 2 jobs, supported her younger brother, and had lost her mother years ago after feeding her through the same illness his father now battled. She had no luxury of rest, yet she gave more than anyone else in the room. Later that week, Adrian returned, not because he needed coffee, but because something inside him urged him back to that small diner. He watched Lena again, seeing the pattern. She helped elderly customers sit, carried heavy trays despite the pain in her back, and offered warm food to a homeless veteran who had nothing to give in return. She didn't know he was observing. She didn't know the richest man in the city stood there quietly learning from her actions. Actions that spoke louder than any business lesson he had ever learned. One evening, after a long shift, Lena stepped outside to catch her breath. Her hands trembled with fatigue, and her eyes glistened with the weight of weeks without rest. Her brother's tuition was overdue. Their rent was late. Life had pushed her into corners she fought tirelessly to escape. But even then, she whispered a small prayer of thanks for another day of work. Adrian saw her collapse on the bench in exhaustion, unaware of his presence. And at that moment, he made a decision that would change both their lives forever. He reached out not with the power of a billionaire, but with the heart of a son who had finally remembered what mattered. The next day, he returned to the diner with his father, not as a customer, but as someone who understood the value of compassion. He left an envelope quietly at the counter with no name, containing enough money to clear her debts, cover her brother's education, and give her a new beginning. He didn't wait for her to open it. He didn't need credit. He only needed to give back what she unknowingly gave him, a reminder of love, humanity, and connection. Lena discovered the envelope hours later. When she counted the amount, her knees nearly buckled. Tears streamed down her face, falling onto the diner floor she had wiped 1,000 times. She looked around desperately, searching for the person responsible, but everyone was gone. She pressed the envelope to her chest and sobbed, not because of the money, but because someone saw her. Someone cared. Someone believed she deserved better. Days later, Adrian visited again. The moment Lena saw him, something inside her recognized the truth, not from the way he dressed, but from the way he looked at his father now, with intention, patience, and love. And in that silent understanding, their worlds shifted. Adrian introduced her to his father as the woman who reminded him how to be a son again. His father smiled, confused but warm. Lena felt a lump rise in her throat. She didn't know it yet, but this small encounter would lead her into a future where her kindness became the bridge to a life she had never dared dream of, working with Adrian's foundation, supporting caregivers, and building programs for families who felt forgotten. Backhand index pointing right. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and comment to help it reach more people who need a little hope today. Before you go, tell me in the comments, do you believe kindness can change a life? If you'd like, I can also create white heavy checkmark SEO package, white heavy checkmark YouTube tags and hashtags, white heavy checkmark thumbnail text ideas, white heavy checkmark 6 image paragraph prompts. Just tell me.